Hello, welcome to Telesur. I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is Interviews from Quito, the program where we explore the big challenges facing this country and the region. Ecuador is choosing another president in a matter of months, but the race for Carondelet Palace has been plagued with scandals and corruption allegations. So if the preparations for the elections are this hectic, what could be the situation for the nation once the campaign begins? And what role will the economic and health crisis play in this? To discuss this, we have analyst Akangao Viteri. Thank you, Akangao, for joining us.
Thank you very much for your invitation.
So how would you describe the political situation in Ecuador at the moment? Can you give us a brief description of how the preparations for the elections have been going?
Well, it's a very it's a very difficult political view that we're having here in Ecuador, because there is this prosecution against this certain political party, that's Revolución Ciudadana, and the government and its institutions are doing everything to not let them participate in the elections of 2021. So I mean, democracy is a very fragile word right now, because they're doing democratic things to do undemocratic things. I mean, they're using democracy to do things that are not pretty much democratic, and it's going to be, from my point of view, a very violent campaign, because we have this strong group of the elites and oligarchs joining to fight against the progressive tendencies here in Ecuador. So it's very difficult, because also we don't have a clear view of what's going to happen in the elections. They're using the CNE, which is the institution that it's in charge of the elections, that to not let this party, of Rafael Correa participate. So we have to see what's going to happen. However, it's not very promising, although they do have this strong electoral base. However, it's not very promising in terms of whether they're going to commit fraud or not from the government and the opposition.
So can you explain a little more about the situation of, in this case, the former president Rafael Correa, because he's been having several obstacles to run. Can you walk us through a little bit of those?
Yes, I mean, what they're doing is, as I said, is they're using the democratic institutions supposedly to do undemocratic things, because first of all, the CNE, they went and made up these things that they have to do to write down the candidacy, in this case of Rafael Correa, that it has to be personal, that the candidate has to be present in the CNE office. However, they didn't count that, because of the pandemic situation, these things can be done from telematically. So Rafael Correa did that. However, they're trying to put all these obstacles to not let him inscribe his candidacy as vice president. So they want to create this atmosphere that if he doesn't go through all these supposedly bureaucracy things that they just made up in a matter of days, then also Andrés Arauz, which is the candidacy for president, will be disqualified as well. So that is clearly an undemocratic thing to do, because they have done everything that the reglement says. But also we have this judicial this lawfare against Rafael Correa in this caso sobornos, which is actually, here in Ecuador they call it caso bochornos, because it's something made up. It's the hardest proof that they have. It's a notebook written on an airplane, and the CNE is waiting for the justice to to say, okay, Rafael Correa is guilty, so he can't participate in the elections. But they're very desperate to do that because the deadlines are coming up, and everything shows that Rafael Correa can be the running mate for Andres Arauz. However, it's very difficult to. I mean, it's very clear to see what's happening here because we have this strong economic groups, the elites, the economic elites that have joined together. You know, we have Guillermo Lasso, we have Jaime Nebot against Rafael Correa, no, against Andres Arauz. In the the progressives, I mean the left, Rafael Correa and Andrés Arauz, and all the Revolución Ciudadana, they're trying to do everything in their power to inscribe the candidacy of Rafael Correa, and everything shows that it's possible because Rafael Correa left a very good system of doing things telematically, of the signing things in the internet. I mean, it's not true that what the reglement says that you have to be there in person. That's not true, and they have proved themselves wrong even in an interview. The delegate from the CNE that didn't want to give the papers for Correa to sign, he said no, he's not here personally. And then in an interview, he was like me, doing an interview like this, I think via Zoom or Skype. He said, no, I'm here personally giving this interview. So they cannot, I mean, they contradict themselves. Also, something important to see is that the delegate from the CNE, which I repeat is the institution that it's in charge of the elections. He's a nephew of the actual president, Lenin Moreno, and I think everybody knows what Lenin Moreno represents as a head of state. I mean, his political prosecution to other political leaders of Revolución Ciudadana is very well known through Maria Paula Romo, and that's what's happening. But I mean, it's a very complex situation. However, there are the mechanisms, the legal mechanisms that allow Rafael Correa to be the running mate for Andres Arauz. However, we have to see because the CNE has until the 12th of September, if memory doesn't fail me, to reject or accept candidacies, and after that, political parties have 2 days to present another running mate. So they only have 2 ways to reject Rafael Correa, which is, I repeat, reject his candidacy for A or B reason, or wait that the judicial system says, okay, Rafael Correa is guilty for accepting bribes and everything with Odebrecht, so that inhabilitates him to participate in an election. Those are the only 2 ways. The other ways that they have tried to do, which is what I said, all these reglaments, supposed reglaments of the primaries and everything. Rafael Correa, Andres Arauz, the list that is supporting them is list 1, has done everything that says that's stated in the reglaments. So they only have those 2 ways that, as I said, to reject Rafael Correa. So it's very difficult for them to reject, but we have to be ready to present another candidate.
So I was also wondering, because you were mentioning this alliance between Lasso and Nebot, and that would be the right wing, the political right wing in Ecuador, the most important parties from the right wing coming together to fight the left in this case. But there's also seemed to be a bit of a divided left, because it's not only Rafael Correa and Andres Arauz running for the left. We also have indigenous movements that are presenting their own candidate. Would you say the left has also tried to disperse a bit the vote, or will they come together to fight the right wing in the elections?
Well, we have to analyze if the indigenous movement Pachakutik is actually representing some kind of left. Here in Latin America, we always have to speak about the different lefts that there are. Why? Because the candidate for Pachakutik, Yacu Perez Huartambel. At some point during the presidency of Rafael Correa, he said, I'd rather have a banker as president than a dictator as president. We have seen Pachakutik, CONAIE, which are Pachakutik is the political party, CONAIE is the movement, is the indigenous movement of Ecuador. We have seen them make alliances with the right, just to be opposition just to do opposition against Rafael Correa. So I don't want to say that they represent the left, but yes, I mean there are many lefts. There is a broken left here in Ecuador. We have, for example, this very famous intellectual, and also he was a congressman at some point, Ayala Mora, Enrique Ayala Mora. He's pacted with the right. He has worked with this government, which is a rightist neoliberal government. So pretty much as left as a political praxis, we're not seeing a very strong left. There are other movements that want to come together with Pachakutik. We have this Democracia Sí, which is the party of Gustavo Larrea, who themselves say that they are of the left. However, they're not, because they are also pacting with the right. I mean, they're going to participate, but if we go to a second round, una segunda vuelta, it's obvious that they're going to go with the right. So the left here in Ecuador is very peculiar, because they have always pacted with the right. And then when Rafael Correa came into the scene with the Revolución Ciudadana, that's where like they say here in Ecuador, la izquierda infantil, the toddler left, they didn't support Rafael Correa because he didn't want to do specific things about exploiting oil or things like that. So they went to the right, which they do. I mean, they have this political ideology to suck everything that nature can give to humankind. Sorry. So I mean, the left here in Ecuador is not very solid, and the strong reference of the left that we have here in Ecuador right now is the progressive tendency, which is actually the correísmo, like they say here, which are those who support Rafael Correa, Andrés Arauz, and the list of candidates to the National Assembly that have been drawn up as well.
Indeed. And once that we're talking about the elections, it seems that this year they will be really large. We have about 16 pre-candidates, candidates that are still on the point of deciding, confirming their candidacies, and that will cost about $114 million according to authorities, and more for each candidate once the campaign begins. Is that good for a country that is going through an economic crisis and also a health crisis, a pandemic that is a worldwide pandemic?
Well, I mean, that's a very, from my point of view, that's a very, that's not a very, I mean, it's not a good argument, because if we put it in that perspective about the pandemic and everything, we have to consider that this government preferred to pay the debt to the International Monetary Fund, anticipated debt that expired in 2022 and 2023. They paid during the crisis of the COVID-19, instead of buying things to fight against the COVID-19. I mean, this government preferred to pay the debt instead of buying supplies for the doctors, for nurses, or making a fund to give us not a loan, but to give a small amount of money to people that have lost their jobs, because of the pandemic. And also, speaking about that, this government has preferred to fire people during the pandemic, because there's too much state. No, there's too much institutions that cannot let the free market be free here in Ecuador. Those kind of those kind of speeches, I mean, they're very vague. They're not solid. And that thing about the money that go to the political parties for the campaign, I mean, that's a constitutional right, as well as a constitutional right and it's in the constitution also not to reduce the budget for education and health during a crisis like the one we're living now. However, this government reduced the budget for health and education, to pay the debt to the International Monetary Fund. And so, I mean, to speak about if it's good or not, for a country that's going through this crisis, and that they have to give money to the political parties. I mean, that's nothing if we compare to what the government has done and it's doing, because they're going to sign a new treaty, a new deal with the IMF. And so, and then we have Guillermo Lasso that says, I'm going to quit to receive the money for my campaign. Of course, if he earns $40,000 a month, if he has money in offshore accounts, and then of course he doesn't need the money to do campaign, because he has it. He has more money than every political party together. But it's a right that political parties that are not lucrative, though they shouldn't be, are not lucrative, like the one of Guillermo Lasso, for example, or the one of Jaime Nebot. They have to receive that money to supposedly be in equal conditions during a campaign, which of course that's not going to happen, because we have the press, no, we have the press that's going against Rafael Correa, Andres Arauz, and everything that's not aligned with what the actual government is doing, and with what the other parties that want to run as president. In this case, Guillermo Lasso, he's very much aligned with what the government is doing. He's going to keep doing that. We are not presenting that kind of political programs. So that's what's happening, no?
So would you say it's sort of an excuse to use these figures to, for example, the decision by the government to announce that they might be considering not making voting mandatory in Ecuador? Would that be a way to take away the legitimacy of these elections and to take away the right of the people?
Of course. I mean, we're going back in history to a moment, you know, here in Latin America is very common, in Ecuador as well, to a moment where only people who could read and only people who had a certain amount of money and owned land could vote. I mean, what they want to do with that is to take away the vote of the majority. And sadly, the majority here in Ecuador are people that are below the not poverty, but I mean, they're not como clase media, you know. They're the popular sectors of this country, and trying to do that, they're trying to take away from Rafael Correa and Andres Arauz, like we say here in Spanish, no, el voto duro, the hard vote that could give them a win. However, what they didn't count on is that it's in the Constitution that voting is not an option. I mean, you have to vote, and if you don't vote, then you have to pay a fee. They want to take out that thing that you don't have to pay a fee if you don't vote. So they want to take that away, but they can't, and they couldn't. That's why they're making all these things to not let Rafael Correa and Andres Arauz participate in the election. But also, in addition to that, um, we have that these ideas, the media, are very good in implanting these micro ideas, saying that there might not be an election because of the pandemic. So that's the scenario that we're facing, and that's the scenario that we have to prepare for. Um, However, I mean, internationally, I think um, we have support, because what they're doing is unconstitutional. Therefore, it's not democratic. Though they want to appear, they want to make it seem that they're doing democratic things, but they are only using the democratic institutions, not to give that legitimacy that you were speaking of, to do undemocratic things.
Yes.
So
I don't want to lose any more time before we end this interview. Unfortunately, we are running out of time. But what will happen with the government of Ecuador? Because we see that it still has a low acceptance among the population. It has imposed austerity measures. It's plagued with corruption scandals. How will its image change? We know that it's not running for re-election. Moreno won't go for re-election. What would it do now? We are, at least it's not very common for Ecuadorians to see a president, a government not going for re-election after having a government for 10 years and being very popular and winning several elections in a row.
Well, as we say here in Ecuador, no, it seems like the government is not going for re-election, but actually Guillermo Lasso is the official candidate of the government. Okay, so that's what we see here. However, I mean, it's very clear that even internationally, the current government of Ecuador, it's embarrassing. I mean, what they've done, what they have tried to do to Rafael Correa, with Interpol and everything, and Interpol rejected them 3 or 4 times. I mean, that's very clear, no? That the government lacks of legitimacy, the government lacks of professionalism to do anything. I mean, they can even violate rights, right? You know, so I mean, the government is embarrassing internationally as well. I mean, even here in Ecuador, which is very hard to find, we have many lawyers, no, that are against Rafael Correa, but that have said this. What they're doing to Rafael Correa, what they're doing to Paula Pavon, for example, it's embarrassing, because it has no legal substance. It has nothing to do with what's written on law. So this government has to go, but not only that. I mean, they have to pay for what they have done. They have to pay legally. I mean, if they have to go to jail, then they will have to go to jail. They have to be investigated. But yeah, I mean, the government and the image of this government is embarrassing. It's very low, and people want them to go. People want them to be 2021 to vote against them. So that's the scenario that we have here.
Going to play a very important role for the elections as well in 2021. Thank you very much, Akangao, for your time.
Thank you, Carla, for your invitation, and well, I'm always here.
Thank you. So we've been talking to analyst Akangao Viteri about the political scenario for Ecuador as we head to a presidential election, all the political alliances, and what road the nation might take in 2021. Thank you for joining us. This is Interviews from Quito. I'm Carla Gonzalez. Until next time.